for your skills. And they brought me in, and I worked on the World War II project, and that was the start of my in studio life. And then when I started working on Archer, it was actually during the height of the recession. Anyone remembers 2008, 2009, just bombshell hitting the United States? Our economy had plummeted. So many people were not hiring. And I spent 7 months working two non creative jobs. Well, I did creative stuff there, but it wasn't my main thing. I worked at a construction company. It was called Mopac. And I did executive administrative work, and I helped with procuring the project bids and scheduling people. I had done that kind of stuff when I was in high school, so I had some experience with it. And then at night, I worked another full time job at a yogurt shop called Yogli Mowgli, the first one that came to Georgia. And so I was working two full make traditional animation because I didn't have a light table. And then I would save my animations on a little player that I got in a Happy Meal toy because I didn't have a smartphone or anything like that. But I saved my animations on there. It didn't have like characters on the player, so it was just all black. And I still have the player to show that it was professional looking. And I would show that to people and just show them my latest work. And I eventually got to meet one of the people who was hiring for the show, and they brought me on after taking an animation test, and things really popped off from there. You'll hear often from people that once you get your foot in the door, it's so much easier after that. And it was a lot easier after that. My next job and then the job after that, a lot of them came from people who were working in the studio with me. They just said, "Oh, I know somebody who can do another animation," and they would hand it off to me. So that is how I got my start. I could tell you how I started my business, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to learn how to get into the animation industry. So that's how I got in, and you're going to hear many people talk about their stories, and it's going to be very different. There's what I call the front door, which is you go to school, you learn how to animate, you make an amazing portfolio, you apply for a job, they see how amazing you are, and then they hire you. That's the front door. That's where extremely talented, well connected people go through. They go through that door. But if you are lacking in some area, maybe you don't have the most connections, maybe your portfolio isn't stellar, then you might have to go through another door, which I like to refer to as the side door. So the side door is where I have had to go through on several occasions because even though I've won awards and I have my own company and I've done lots of projects and um, uh, work with entities like Apple, MTV, Captain Planet's Planetary Movement, Will Pharrell Williams, I Am Other, uh, 30 Rock, um, just a host of music videos and commercials and other entities like that. Even though that I've had that under my belt, I still don't consider myself the best artist. And I wouldn't consider myself the best animator at any point in my career, but I can still get these jobs. And I believe that you can too. If you're looking to get into the industry and you don't have the best, you know, portfolio, you can still get into the industry. And I'm going to tell you a few tips on how you can do that and secure yourself the kind of job you're looking for. So the first thing you need to think about is getting an education. I know I just told you you don't have to go to art school, but you do need to get an education whether you choose to go to school or not. You can get a formal education, which happens in a university, and there are so many great universities out there. Some of the top ones are California Institute of Arts, Ringling College of Art and Design, Savannah College of Art and Design, the one I went to, Rhode Island School of Design. There's just so many you can find on the internet. And now that we're in this time where everyone's open to an online education, and so many universities, even formal education universities, have opened their doors up to allowing you to take their classes virtually instead of having to go on campus. There are so many other educational resources that you can tap into now. That leads right into the informal education that you can get. So I love online school. I love learning from home. And if you're a person who, as long as you get a little bit of the information, you can you can go from there. Then online school might be great for you. And there's ANM School, which I love, Animation Mentor. If you're going more into motion graphic kind of animation, there's School of Motion, iAnimate, CG Master Academy. There's just so many, and there's even more popping up in the last few months. I've seen so many people decide that they're going to start their own educational program. So now there's a lower bar of entry if you're trying to learn from someone else. Alternatively, you can do some things that are more traditional to how animation was in the early days, and that's by doing an apprenticeship where you study directly under someone. So you'll find a professional and then work beside them and complete work that will actually be used. And they'll critique you the entire way so that you're learning as you go. There's also an internship, which today is very popular, where you go to a job and they teach you the skills, you get certain tasks to do. A lot of times it's for a specific increment of time. So it might be 8 weeks or for the summer or some other predetermined length of time. There's mentorships. So mentorships are very loose and I love them because you can do your own projects, ones that you're passionate about, and then they can help you develop it and really grow your skills so that you can be a stronger artist. And one that I see people not taking advantage of enough is just shadowing people, kind of an externship where you're not really there to be taught. You're there to observe and to absorb the information as you're there. So you don't interrupt the person who's creating the art, you allow them to keep working, and you just take notes behind them. Maybe you can ask a question or two, but not too many. This is great for if you want to pair up with an artist who's really busy and doesn't have time to slow down to teach you. Lastly, there's self-taught. Now, if you really not get a formal education, you cannot go to one of those universities online. You can't shadow anyone. You're just in a spot where you're removed from everyone. Then I would say there are lots of free resources online that can help point you in the right direction. There is LinkedIn Learning, which has resources on it. Skillshare, which I love. Udemy, Adobe online tutorials. So if you're using an Adobe product, they have their own educational tutorials on their site. And if you're using Toon Boom, they definitely have an educational tutorial resource that you can use. So don't neglect the software you're using. If you're using Blender or any other open source software, they still have tutorials. So follow those tutorials and you're definitely going to grow your skills. And if you need feedback, join an online community, join a Facebook group, or go on a Discord group and get someone to give you feedback on your work. That's still a way for you to learn how to animate. The next thing I want to talk about is creating a portfolio. So you already started upping your skills. You started learning things that all animators learn, like the 12 principles of animation, character acting, physics, and of course your tool skill sets. So you've learned all that when you've gotten your education, however you got it, and now it's time to create your portfolio. So what should you have in your portfolio? I think the first thing you should do is think about your goals. Do you want to work independently or do you want to work for a studio? So if you want to work for yourself, you have a lot of flexibility and the kind of content that you're going to put in your portfolio. You are essentially creating work for the next client that you're going to have offering you a job. So what you need to do is create work that's in line with that. If you want to make music videos, when you're practicing and learning your skills, you need to be practicing with music videos. If you want to be making commercial spots or PSAs, which is public service announcements, or if you want to work on children's shows, you need to be practicing in that style. That way, when you go to make your portfolio, you actually have pieces that are ready to go and you don't have to start from scratch. Start with your vision. Where do you want to see yourself in the next few years? And honestly, if we're thinking about the fact that animation is having a huge industry boom right now, where do you want to see yourself in the next year or the next few months? Think about that really deeply. Do you want to be sitting in an office where you're arm's distance away from all your employees, well, your other coworkers, not employees, or the other coworkers, or do you want to be in your house? Do you want to be at a remote studio? Do you want to be working overseas in another country? It's really important to figure those things out now so that you can narrow down what your options are and figure out what those people are looking for before you start making your portfolio. Get inspiration from people that are already where you want to be. So if there's a studio in Ireland that you want to work for, go ahead and look at the other employees that work there and see what their portfolios look like. Is that the kind of work that you want to make? And if so, add them to your inspiration board and start making work that's close to what they're making at that studio. Now, it's a little tricky because if you are studio bound, you're really molding yourself to work for someone else. And most studios work on client work. So they're not creating their own content. You're not getting to go there and be the brilliant creative person you are. You're going there more as hands for hire. You create whatever their clients are asking for. And those clients can change over time. So you could be inspired by one studio in Ireland, and then 2 years later, they have different clients and they're working on things that don't inspire you anymore. So it's a little bit risky to make your portfolio for the studio that you want to work for, but it is a surefire way to get a job at that studio is to make sure you make work that they can use for their clients. Um, so after you have your goals clearly defined, you know where you want to work, you know what kind of environment is, if it's a big or small studio, what kind of work they put out, because you want to think of what your portfolio is going to look like, after working with them. So if you've been working at that company for 3 years, what's your portfolio going to look like? So after you define all those goals, it's really time to curate your presence. So focus on what you want to create at that studio and make those things. If you are in motion graphics, you might want to add motion graphic work, character work, and graphic design. You don't want to add things that are not going to fit into those skill sets. Because if you add like still life paintings or a bunch of manga comic books or um, maybe some special effects, uh, I don't know, something that just doesn't fit, it's going to confuse people. If you put everything that you can do into your portfolio, kind of like this wall back here, it's just a hodgepodge of different kinds of art. And if I were hiring someone for a specific job in the animation pipeline, I would want to know that they could complete that job 100% and not that they kind of spread their attention out into other areas. That would confuse me as to what they really wanted, and that would concern me about whether they would stay at my studio for very long or not, whether they would hop on to the next thing that they also have shown that they enjoy. So make sure you focus your portfolio and only show what people are looking for. If I'm looking for a 2D animator, I want to see 2D animations, not so much your 3D stuff, because I would hire a 3D animator for that. If you're working at a smaller studio, they may ask you to wear multiple hats, so you may have to do 2D and 3D. But you should assess that when you're planning your goals, if you want to be able to be versatile or if you do want to focus on one thing. Make sure you include your process in your portfolio. So include your rough sketches and your silhouettes and your character turnarounds and your characters if you're going into character design for animation. And also think about the person who's next in the pipeline. So when you're making your characters and you're doing your character turnarounds, go ahead and show that the parts of the body move in a way that can be animated. That'll help the person who's hiring you understand that you can work in the pipeline. When you're working in 2D animation, some of your process might be you doing your blocking animation, or it could also be your references, your videos that you've captured for your animation. And it could even be your final piece where you've overlaid everything into the final animation piece, maybe the part that has already been composited and it has the VisFX in it, showing that beautiful piece as well. Make sure you're descriptive in your portfolios. So I look at portfolios all the time, and sometimes it's difficult to understand exactly what I'm looking at. I might see a piece of art and say, oh, that's beautiful. I wonder if the artist who owns this website did every single thing in it, or if they did a collaboration. So it's good to say, I worked on specifically the 2D animation, or I did the cleanup art, or I did the in betweens. And if you use a certain program, it's also nice to know that. We have so many programs today that are capable of doing a million things. And if I had a studio and I only use one specific program and I see something beautiful in your portfolio, I know, yes, you can animate, but can you use the software that I have at my studio? And was the project I'm looking at done in that software? So it's good when you're making your demo reel or if you're just putting a gallery on your website to include the name of the artwork, the software you used, and maybe a little tidbit about it. So you could say that, this was for a commercial or for a music video, or was a group project where you were promoting a certain idea in the community. Also, keep it very clean. So your portfolio shouldn't have a bunch of images that distract from your work. It's really nice if you have a simple, plain background, and then if you want to add embellishments, you can add them around the edges, but don't let them interact with the artwork because it could actually detract from it. A great example is this wall. This wall has lots of art on it, but could you imagine if the actual wall color wasn't a color, it was artwork? That would be a little distracting. It would be difficult for me to focus on the actual pieces of art that are behind me and not the wall. So make sure the focus is always on your artwork and that it doesn't have anything that's going to detract from it. Make sure you brand yourself also as a professional animator. I see so many people who are learning, and in their about section, they will say student animator. And who is hiring a student animator? They're usually hiring an animator, a professional animator, no matter what level you're at, whether you're entry level, intermediate, or professional, experienced, whatever it is, you want to say that you're an animator. You also, in your header, want to make sure that you list yourself as a type of animator that you are. So 2D animator, 3D animator, or motion graphics, experimental animator, whatever it is. So after you've gotten your education and you've created your portfolio, now it's time for you to promote yourself. And I would say it's time to get social. So networking is going to be the next thing that I really want to focus on. There are a lot of networking organizations that you can connect with that will help you with connecting to other artists in the industry and other opportunities as well. There is my company, which is called My Animation Life, and you can go to myanimationlife.com and you can connect with us and we'll help you with your networking. There's also ASIFA South, which has, I think, over 48 chapters all around the world. So you can definitely find ways to network with animators and other people in the industry through them. There's, if you're a motion person, like motion graphics or motion design, there's Ease Atlanta. If you're in Georgia, there's Atlanta Film Society. And one of my favorites is Film Bar Mondays. I love going to their bar hops where you meet other people in the production industry. But I want to say that it's 2020, and that means you get to network with people all over the world. You don't have to stay in your hometown or in your state or in your country. You can network with people from all over, and that'll still strengthen your chances at getting employment, even if you don't want to leave your state. There's an option of working remotely from your state with these people, or them connecting you with people, or just recommending you, or helping you grow in other ways. So don't neglect to reach out to people all over the world, especially now when we have so much access. So now let's talk a little bit about getting work. So when you get work as an animator, you can either be an independent animator, you can be studio bound, or you can keep an open mind and do a combination of things. So let's say you are going to be an independent animator. You want to make sure you learn the full business of animation. Whenever you start freelancing or become your own business owner, you have to learn how to do the paperwork. And I recommend this to every animator, not just people who plan on working for themselves full time, but also for people who are studio bound. I have found that when I work in studios, most people have another job. They have a small company they do. They do stand up comedy, or they work at animation conventions. They go and sell plushies, or they do commissions on the side. They do something to earn money, because if you're joining the animation industry or any entertainment related industry, you're going to learn that the work is a little fickle. You, as much as you're on payroll with a company, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to still have your job in the next few months. I worked in television a lot, and we would have 9 months of being in season, working on a production, and then 2 to 3 months of no job at all, where we are on what's called hiatus. And then I would really rev up my side business. So if you're an independent person, and even if you're working at a studio, I would recommend that you start freelancing now and get a feel for what the entire animation industry is and how money is made in the industry. This is even going to make you a better employee if you plan on working in the studio. Learn marketing and advertising, because you're going to have to sell yourself. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. I like to think about Donald Hertzfeldt, the guy who did the Pop Tart commercials, the stick figures. Do you remember those? They were beautiful animations, but the drawings weren't that advanced. And even if your drawings aren't that advanced, you still can be a very successful animator, just like Donald Hertzfeldt. You need to learn marketing, you need to learn promotions, how to put yourself out there, and that's going to set you ahead of people who are even more talented than you. Establish yourself as a professional. So one thing I love to do is to promote myself in a way that really highlights my education and my expertise, and even some of my skills as an animator. So I might do a live stream on Facebook or another social media platform and show myself doing my animation work. That way people develop something called top of mind awareness. So when they think about an animator, the first thing they think about is you. They think, okay, this person, Elisa can make an animation for me. Or they might be able to refer you. So if you are at least staying at the top of people's mind as a professional, maybe when you make posts on social media, you make posts that are smart posts, posts that highlight your expertise in animation. You might critique something positively, of course, or you might showcase a new piece of technology, or just give your opinion on an event that's happening in the industry. People will start associating you with the industry, like, go-to person, because you know so much, and that's going to get you more client work. Also, build your clientele and maintain a database. So as you learn more people's expertise and you meet more people at networking events and through social media, it's good for you to keep your own personal database of who does what. I can't tell you a million times that I have needed to know who did something that I'm looking for, and I had to go through my database, and I was so thankful that it was there. So definitely keep a database, even if it's just you and your friends right now. Hey, I hear, oh, oh, I hear somebody talking. I don't know if you're able to hear them. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know if you can hear this person, but I hear a person talking. I'm just going to keep going. So make sure you keep your database and maintain it and add people as you go. It'll be a lot easier if you start early. So if you are a new animator or a student, it's good for you to go ahead and just go through your Facebook list, go through your Instagram list, and start categorizing people into your own database, so that later on down the road, you know who can help you. Another thing that you want to do, and I'm going to turn my audio, I'm going to turn my volume off on my computer so I don't have to keep hearing this guy. Okay, that's much better. If you are studio bound, you want to make sure that you meet the general expectations of the studio. And a lot of studios just want to know, can you do the job? One, Can you work in a pipeline too, which means creating your work for the next person in the pipeline? So if you're a character designer, making sure your characters are able to be moved for an animator. If you're a storyboard illustrator, making sure that the motions that you're creating are easily translated into animation so the next people can use it. If you're an animator, making sure that your animations are so clean that your layers are named, that your nodes are labeled and organized so that the next person who does compositing or editing is able to easily work with it. So if you can meet those expectations and you work well with others, which means that you have a positive personality. Sometimes it means you have to fit the personality of the people at the studio. It's something personally that I'm against, the fact that everyone has to be so similar in a lot of studio settings. Um, but if you have a personality that meshes well with the other people in the studio, then they're more likely to bring you on. So it's really a good idea for you before you start applying to the studio to network with people who are at the studio. So before you even apply to a job, while you're not ready, while you're still working on your portfolio, reach out to people who work there and try to become friends with them. There are techniques in doing that and becoming friends with people. And if you can forge a friendship with these people early on when you don't have the means to get a job from them, then you won't be talking to them from a place of wanting something. And they'll feel that you're more genuine in approaching them for friendship. So you need to develop these friendships before you work at the studio so that when it is time to apply, you have someone who's going to give a good word for you. I've been in situations where I've been sitting at a studio and then somebody walks by and says, "Who knows such and such? They're looking for a job here." And a few of us raise our hands and then they call another candidate out. And more people raise their hands for knowing that person. And it's come down to the wire of let's vote on who comes to the studio. So you want as many people as possible on your side just in case a situation like that happens. Also, you want to be able to master an animation test if you're going to an animation studio. A lot of times, it's not enough to just have a portfolio that looks good and shows that you can animate. You also have to be able to work in their process. So each studio is unique and they have unique ways of rigging their characters and using them in files. And if you can quickly master that, then you're more likely to be the candidate that they'd like to bring on board. So again, go back to your networking with other people, start figuring out how they do things differently. And then if you need help when you're taking your animation test, feel free to reach out to the person who gave you the test. To get a job in an animation studio, it's really important for you to pay attention to animation trends. So know when there's a hiring boom for 2D, a hiring boom for 3D animation, a hiring boom for motion graphics. They all go in waves. And sometimes the waves they cross over at different paths. So you might have a 2D boom and the 3D is low, and then you might have a 3D boom and the 2D is low, and sometimes it's at the same time. But it's really important to pay attention to when people are buying or greenlighting animation in the style that you want to work in. That way, you know, a few months down the road, after the greenlight season, it's going to be production season, and then they're going to be hiring. For a lot of animation, especially in the United States, March is a good time to start applying to jobs because that's when we start seeing that animation boom. So if you want to get your application on file before people start hiring, then in January and February, that's a great time to send it in. And you'll want to make sure you're on people's radar. So that's also a good time to reach back out to people and to say, "Hello, you remember me?" uh, we have some also, I was going to say we have like interview skills that are important. So I would connect with someone who could give you career advice on how to nail an interview and practice your interviewing skills with someone if you're going studio bound, because you will have to interview with a studio, whether it's just through the test and some emails, or if it's virtually or in person where you're having to be face to face with the person who's bringing you on. Uh, that last thing I talked about, about getting a job in animation. So I talked about being an independent animator, working in a studio, and then a little bit of a combination by keeping an open mind. So if you keep an open mind, there are a lot of opportunities for you. They may not be the most glamorous opportunities, like working for Disney and Pixar, but they are opportunities that can be sustainable and quite lucrative for an animator, even one who's early in their career. And that's working in other industries with your animation skills. So, have you ever considered being an animator for the medical industry? Whenever you watch a commercial and you see the medication coming in a screen and how it works in your body and all of that, an animator had to create that. And I would pay more attention to every single time you see animation. Sometimes you see it in commercials or in technology presentations, military. I've seen lots of Army animations through commercials that look phenomenal. There's the education sector. So if you're doing whiteboard animations or working for schools like high schools, middle schools, universities, and helping them with their teaching platforms, right now that is so huge with so many people having to learn online. There are corporations, pharmaceutical companies, the government. Have you ever worked for a utility company or did commercials for them? So those kind of companies that I listed. Oh, and legal. I have a friend who makes legal animations, and he definitely makes a killing doing those because people will pay a lot of money to stay out of jail. So you using your animation to prove their innocence can be a great endeavor for you. These opportunities are not the most glamorous ones. A lot of people want to work on their favorite TV shows, but they're very stable. And a lot of times they're not competitive because people are so driven to work at the glamorous jobs. So it can be a lot easier to get. And I recommend this not just for entry level animators, but for animators who want to have a more stable life and not the fast paced whirlwind of the entertainment industry, even though it's very glamorous. Um, so we've talked about getting your education, working on your portfolio, getting social and networking, and then getting work independently at a studio or for maybe the not the most glamorous company, but one that pays. There are so many other ways to break into the animation industry, and I don't want you to feel like whatever I named today is the only path. I do want to give you an opportunity to reach out to me if you would like help networking with people. There are strategies that you can use to connect with people. One of my favorite platforms for this is LinkedIn and LinkedIn hacking. Have you ever heard of that? Where you go on LinkedIn and you find the people you want to work for, you find their employees, you find the employee that's most like you, so maybe the one that has most recently been hired and most recently out of school, and then connecting with them based on something else that they do, so not their animation or the fact that they work for the company you want, and then making connection that way. That's one strategy I love, and there are a lot of other strategies. It's important for you to connect with someone who can help you along the way. I, as a person who has gone through the struggle of trying to find work after living in small towns and finally getting to school, I understand the struggle and I'm open to helping you. And so is everyone on the My Animation Life team. So please reach out to us. Go to myanimationlife.com and let us know your story. Just tell us where you're coming from and we'll see what we can do. If you have any questions about becoming an animator or how to get into the industry, please put it in the chat. I would love to answer those questions. Let me get a drink of water. So, I am working on some projects right now. I got hired to work on 3 short films for the state of Alabama. And then most recently, I got hired to work on a presentation for the medical industry. And so I've been animating a lot more than I normally do. This is the year that I animate. Uh, After working in the industry for so long, I learned there are things that can happen to you as an animator that they just don't teach you in art school. And one thing that happened to me is I started getting nerdy injuries. You can start getting sciatic nerve pain in your legs from sitting in a chair too long. You can get arthritis, not just carpal tunnel, but arthritis in your hands and arthritis in your neck and lower back pains, all these little injuries and pains from just doing animation all the time. And I figured that this is a job that you want to do on your own time. You don't want to be stuck to, I have to work 16 hours to finish this production every single day. So after doing full-time studio life, I wanted to branch into doing my own business so that I could choose whether I was going to do a presentation like I'm doing today, teach animation, which I do sometimes, or if I want to do the animation. And I staff projects with my company, so we'll find other artists to work on it, and I can choose what scenes I want to work on if I want to work on a scene from that animation. That gives me a lot of versatility, so I'm a huge proponent of people becoming entrepreneurs and learning how to make your own money. It also makes your life a lot more carefree. When you know how to make a dollar on your own, you don't have to sweat whether somebody's going to hire you or whether you're going to get let go on a production. So, no matter what you choose to do, please, I implore you, learn the animation industry all the way around. Learn how to make the art, learn how to get clients, learn how to make money so that you can be more sustainable in this industry. And with that, that's all I have. I'd love to hear whatever questions you have. I'm going to check the chat box. Oh, okay. Let me put my mic on. I turned it off a little bit before because I kept hearing somebody else speak. Thank you for these compliments. You guys are so kind. I'm muted. Weird must be alone. Must be a ghost animator wanting to come back from a job. Okay. Probably. Oh, you know what? I want to tell you something. So I am always continuing my education. I'm going to school now at Harvard University online. I never thought that I would be able to take courses at Harvard, but um, 2020 is the time. It's the time to get your education. And when I started my business, I had to learn all about the animation industry, which meant learning law and learning contracts and learning, how we make these agreements and why we choose to make agreements the way we do. And I didn't know how to read a contract properly when I first started. I'm not going to tell you a lie. When I first saw a contract and I looked at all the words, it just looked like a wall of text. I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm just an artist. I went to art school. I didn't go to law school. I didn't go to business school. I didn't learn all this fancy stuff. And I felt very overwhelmed. Um, but then I started doing tutorials online and learning more about writing a contract, and that helped me read a contract. And then I got so confident in it that I started teaching contract writing for digital artists. So if you're looking for help in writing a contract, I'll help you with it. And if you're not interested, I also have template contracts that you can have as well. So let me know about that. Um, but now I am taking law classes at Harvard University online, and I was also nervous about that because I thought, I went to an art school. There's no way I can learn on the same level as someone at an Ivy League school. And I will tell you, we need to burst that bubble. That is a myth. When I started interacting with the students at these schools, what I learned immediately is that they are not special. They are no smarter than your average art student. They're no smarter than your average, teenager or your average person who's going to college. And if you have the mindset that you want to learn something and it seems intimidating, you are just as much a human being as the person who is standing next to you. So don't feel like you can't go to an online school that is way out of whatever level society has told you that you're at. Because when I started taking those classes, I felt very comfortable. I recognized a lot of the language that was being used. I was able to keep up with the coursework. I didn't have any problem with the homework. Working with students was a little bit different because sometimes people who go to a school that has a lot of prestige, they feel like they also have prestige, and all that comes with those personality traits is there, definitely. But I just want to say that as a piece of encouragement for you, even if you are just going to art school and you've never been to a university and you're trying to learn online, don't be afraid. Your brain works just like everybody else's brain works, and we are no different from you. We're not more special than you. So definitely go after it. Thank you so much, Gigi. Oh, that's so nice to say. All right. Does anyone have any questions? I see so many wonderful comments. You all are so complimentary, and I'm grateful for that. But we do have 4 minutes left. These are your 4 minutes, and I want you to get every single second out of it. So if there's anything that I can answer for you or talk more about, I definitely want to share it. If you know me personally, I can talk for days. And every single thing I talked about, let's consider that a bullet point to put a pin in, because there's probably a presentation I have in a folder that goes over that whole thing. I have presentations over just networking in LinkedIn. I have presentations on networking in Facebook. So if you are interested in learning about any of this, just let me know. You can find me on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and I am working on my YouTube channel, building that up. I have other YouTubes that I've been building up, but not my personal one so much. So I need to work on that. And you can go to my website. It's all Alisa A. Lewis. So you can go to alisaalewis.com, Facebook, Alisa A. Lewis, Instagram, Alisa A. Lewis. Just make sure you spell my name correctly, or else you'll get all the other Alisa Lewises, because it is a common name. So it says, Gigi says, so what is the Discord group you mentioned earlier? I don't remember which Discord group. Was it for networking? Because there are a lot of them. And actually, I got an email for another networking group that I'm absolutely joining. And it was from the Adobe Career Bootcamp that I went to a few days ago. And they sent me links to it. So I'm going to go to those. There are a lot of conventions going on right now online that are just free. And that is wild, because not only do you get access to going to the event and getting to see all the content, you get access to interacting with the presenters who were at these conferences. When I went to the Adobe one, I got to interact with the people who were presenting. And if the barrier of entry was too high for me, it cost too much, it was during a time when I was at work and I couldn't go, then I wouldn't be able to do that. But now that we have these conventions that are so easy to get into, you can connect with the presenters while they're presenting, and then connect with them on LinkedIn and become friends with them. And that's something that if you couldn't afford it, or didn't have the time for going, that you just couldn't do. And now, right now in 2020, 2020 is a year of animation. Now in 2020, we can do that. We can connect with everyone. And I'm so glad that we're virtual, because, oh yes, location was also an issue. A lot of these conferences happened in locations that I just couldn't get to. There's no way I could take off work to go fly out somewhere and then come back in time. It was too much, but now I can be there virtually and interact with people and get their information and make these connections, and you can too. So make this year the year that you like mad grab everything that's available. I signed up for a Zoom account so I can start hosting my own events on Zoom. And if you plan on doing meetings with people, I would say definitely get some sort of way to have professional meetings and just stack them up, because this is the time to grab everything that's available. I believe that is all my time. I've really enjoyed getting to hang out with you all and just tell you more about breaking into the animation industry. If you have any other questions or need more information, please go to myanimationlife.com or alisaalewis.com. And I see Dedrin's here. Hello, Dedrin. I see Dedrin is also muted.
Is the mystery ghost that was haunting our presentation was, also I have two mutes back here, so that's why I'm like, it could have been me, I think, anyway, but it was good. It was good nonetheless. So one, again, thank you so very much for the time, and everybody on both sides of the chat were just raving about all the great information and all the great connectivity and enthusiasm that you have, and all the great real world examples of how to make it in animation. We appreciate you being such a close and warm example of how that's done. So I hope that you'll get a chance to visit us on the digital side of things back in the summit, where we do have a table waiting for you. So you can just let folks know through your social channels
Oh,
if and when
yes.
you have a chance to hang out there. So you actually can come into our summit here at subsumesummit.com, have a chance to come and talk and continue a virtual conversation with Alyssa Lewis, and also find out more about her work with My Animation Life. So again,
Yes.
thank you very much. Go ahead.
All right. Bye. See you all at my table here at the summit.
All right. Thank you so much. And so I appreciate everybody, and thank y'all so very much. Again, my name is Dedrick Sneed, the founder and creator of Subsume Summit, and I'm thankful for y'all to take this time and opportunity to join us not only here on stream, but also in our new virtual campaign that we have online with the Subsume Compound. So for those who haven't had a chance, I'll drop a link in the chat here in just a moment. But again, you can find us at subsumesummit.com. But up next, we actually have two items going, one here on Twitch and one here in the actually in the virtual space. So coming up next here on Twitch is a project that myself and a couple other collaborators worked on called Black Boys in VR, where we explore the Oculus Rift as well as the experience of virtual reality as a Black person. And with that, we also have Georgia Tech is bringing in their sci-fi team to talk about speculative fiction, and we'll be doing that live at our table, the Subsume table, at the very front of the compound. So again, if you're tuning in both with the service as well as Twitch, you can start gathering there at the Subsume table. In that instance, we'll be bringing in three professors to talk about their work in media and in speculative fiction. And then after that, this Twitch will split into a second part where it will be a reading by Afrofuturist Hugo, just completely just high end, completely talented, and all bona fide Miss Cherie Renee Thomas, who will be reading for her book Nine Bar Blues. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our stream and go ahead and see you guys in the virtual world. So thank you all so much for being part of Subsume Summit. We'll be here with you shortly.